As you guys might have noticed, I'm not in the pool, which is more upsetting for me than it probably is for you. But we're on episode 15. I want to start off this episode a little bit more serious. Usually I'd sit here and I'd talk about The Rock or something, but I want to say that I feel the struggle, and I know it's real. The struggle where you feel like you keep trying new things and they're not working, or everybody around you is more successful than you are, or you feel like you don't know what you're doing. I feel that way every day as well. It's real, it's difficult. I was talking to someone once and they told me that most businesses aren't really successful until they've been around for about 7 years. And you kind of look around and you see more and more that that's true. Businesses that you think have been around for 2 years have actually been around for 10 years. They just, like you, struggled in obscurity for years and years before then. And so I looked at some of the top influencers and said, when did they start their blogs? And we looked at Tool Vintage and Something Navy and We Wore What and Atlantic Pacific and Cupcakes and Cashmere. And all of those blogs have been around for about 7 years. Most of them were started in 2009. So what I'm saying is, if you're out there and you feel like you're beating your head against the wall and your following's not growing like you want it to, and you've been at it for 3 years, you've only just started really, and you just got to keep going, keep on pushing, because these things take time and it's really difficult. So make sure you take the time to look back at what you've done and be proud of it, but also know that actually getting success is going to take a long time. So that's pep talk. Now we're going to go into questions. That's a great question. How do brands use Fohr Card? It's something probably a lot of you don't know, because the way Fohr Card looks for you is very different than for brands. When they log in, they have all 11,000 influencers and they can sort it. They could say, I want personal style influencers in New York City who have an Instagram following between 50,000 and 150,000 followers. And all of those listings will come up, and then they can visit your actual profiles and contact you, which hopefully happens all the time. So most of our brands are using it to invite people to events, to find people to do sponsored posts with, invite people to shows, find photographers to shoot their lookbooks. It's kind of all over the place. And as far as, if you're further down in the directory, 3,000, 4,000, 8,000, 9,000, whatever it might be, I'd give you the same advice I would anyone else, which is just, keep focusing on those brands that you want to work with and posting about them organically and reaching out to them. If they are a Fohr Card client, you can go to the brands and agencies directory, which we can put a link to here, and you can actually pitch them through the directory. So I would encourage you to do that if you haven't. And use that private link. Every Fohr Card has a private link where you can send it to any brand and they can see your full stats. So you can use that instead of your press kit. And keep pitching brands, keep sending your ideas. The way our platform works is that brands can just email you directly. They don't message you through the platform necessarily. And so that means a lot of times you're probably getting deals through Fohr Card that you don't actually know are through Fohr Card. When a lead goes from warm to cold, what do? This happens in every sale. This happens with us all the time as well. You're talking to them, everything feels great, and then it dies. I think until they tell you no, it's still a yes. So I would say keep following up. Stay persistent. There's some reason they've gone dark. They're maybe waiting for a piece of information. Something has changed internally. But if they haven't told you yet, it's not totally dead. And I would keep following up until you get the actual no. There's a few emails that we've sent that seem to help. There's one that we send where the subject line is everything okay? ? That seems to get people, it gets their attention, and it generally gets really good response rates. So if you're 5 emails in where you followed up a bunch of times and you kind of want the last email, I would say try and use that subject line, is everything okay? It'll usually get a response, because basically it gives them an opportunity to tell you if something isn't okay. Because maybe, there's no budget, but they're embarrassed because they feel like they've strung you along and they don't want to disappoint you. But what you're looking to get is either a solid yes or a solid no. And if you were talking to them and now you're not talking to them, they're ignoring your emails, right? And they feel bad about that. And so you're this point of tension in their lives. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but sending that "is everything okay" email gives them a chance to open up to you and tell you what's going on so that you can work with that and say, they could say "I'm so sorry, we had a budget, but it kind of fell through and there's not going to be anything until 2017. You could say, "Awesome, I would still do this one for free if potentially, we could work together then in 2017 on a paid basis," and they could be like, "Oh, awesome." So all of a sudden this thing that they didn't want to tell you because they didn't want to disappoint you turns into an opportunity for you to be able to figure out how you can work with them. Running a company, I get hounded by salespeople constantly, and the people who get my business are usually the people who've emailed me 20 times, honestly, because you have to catch them at the right time when they're in a position to answer you. So I don't think there's any amount of times that is too many times to email someone. Okay, JC's a good example. I followed JC's blog for a long time. She gained popularity posting a lot of attainable, more affordable pieces. And then as she, one, grew older, two, grew more popular, started posting things that were more expensive because that's the stuff that she started wearing naturally in her life. Now her followers who were following her when she was posting more affordable things are saying, "Hey, I was following you to figure out how to wear Old Navy and now you're wearing, Balenciaga and Chanel all the time, and that's not relatable for me." If your style is mid to high priced and high end, brands, and it's always been that, then that's what you should post, and you shouldn't pander or change your content because you think it can get you a bigger following. You should stick with kind of what feels natural to you, but understand why people were there in the first place. I think it happens with a lot of influencers who start off with cheaper, more affordable options, and then as they become more successful, they have more money, they are buying more expensive things, and they want to talk about those things, but their followers are all like, "Hey, I'm not here for that. I'm here for, tops under $80, a $100 blazer, something that's really wearable and relatable." So just remember why you became popular and try and speak to that and make sure that you're speaking to that audience that got you where you were. I saw this with a very popular beauty blogger as well. She became popular and got her following with a lot of drugstore products, and then as she had more money, she was drawn to the luxury products because they were better and she could afford them, and that was her life. And she had a lot of pushback on that as well. I think it's a fine line, and you have to be authentic and real. And if your life has changed and your situation has changed where you can afford Chanel or you can afford Tom Ford lipstick instead of drugstore lipstick, I don't think that you shouldn't post about that. I do think that you should give your audience the advice that they still are seeking. Ideally your audience is growing with you. They're growing older with you. They're growing more successful with you. Their tastes are changing with you. But make sure, if you did come up talking about affordable options, if you have, a really expensive look that you're promoting, give the options, give the more affordable options. Make sure you take the effort to find those things and incorporate those things. And I think, with JC, she will wear affordable clothes but have expensive accessories. And that's kind of a balance for her that makes sense. So it's an Old Navy blazer, but it's a Chanel handbag. And I think you can kind of do that mixing high and low. So that's it, a shorter one. I know last week, we had Lainey on. It was incredible. If you guys haven't seen it, everyone was saying it was one of their favorite episodes. You're getting amazing advice from a brand person who's been doing this since really the beginning of the game. She was a driver of influencer marketing. She worked at one of the biggest beauty brands in the world, and she was really pivotal in this industry growing up the way it has. So if you haven't seen The Drink with James with Lainey from last week, right here, absolutely must watch. Go back and check it out. You know, we're blown away with how much, like, the response to these things. Y'all love them. We love doing them. As always, questions make this work. So please send in your questions and I will answer them. Till next week.